Your dog wasn't built to sleep on the couch all day. For centuries, they were hard workers, but the Victorian era turned them into living toys. This is the Victorian Explosion, and it explains why your best friend doesn't have a job today. Life before the pet revolution. Imagine looking at your dog right now, sleeping on the couch, maybe chasing a ball, or just staring at you with those big, loving eyes. Now, I want you to erase that image completely, because if we travel back in time, before what historians call the Victorian Explosion, the creature living in your house wouldn't just look different, it would be fundamentally unrecognizable. Here is the cold, hard truth that might unsettle you. For most of human history, the concept of a pet as we know it today didn't exist. We are talking about a time when dogs were defined solely by their utility. They weren't family members, they were employees. And if they didn't work, they didn't eat. It's fascinating, really. We often assume that the bond between human and dog has always been this sentimental, emotional connection, but the data tells us a different story. Before the Victorian era, the world was dominated by working dogs. These animals were bred for specific, grueling tasks. Herding, guarding, hunting. They were tools, essential for survival, not accessories for a Sunday walk. Experts in social history point out that this era was strictly utilitarian. You didn't have a dog to keep you company, you had a dog to keep you alive. It's a bit of a shock to the ego, isn't it? To think that your beloved fur baby's ancestors were valued only for their sweat equity, not their cuddles. But here is the kicker, and this is the part that usually gets people. If you took a modern dog back to that time, it would likely be considered useless. This historical context is crucial. It sets the stage for one of the most dramatic shifts in biological and cultural history. We were about to trade function for form and survival for status. But what exactly triggered this massive change? What happened to turn a fierce worker into a pampered companion? The answer lies in a specific cultural explosion that we are about to uncover. And trust me, the reason might make you look at your own dog very differently. The rise of pet keeping. So, how did we get here? How did we move from the barnyard to the bedroom? It starts with what we call the rise of pet keeping culture. This wasn't just a trend, it was a societal upheaval. Think about it. Suddenly, keeping an animal just for the sake of keeping it became a thing. It sounds normal now, but at the time, this was a radical departure from tradition. We began to see the emergence of a culture where animals were brought indoors, fed better food, and given names that weren't just descriptions of their jobs. But hold on a second. Ask yourself this. Why do you really have a dog? Is it for protection? Or is it because it makes you look good? During this period, the motivation shifted. It became about pet-keeping culture as a lifestyle. It was a signal to the world that you had the time, the money, and the resources to feed a mouth that gave nothing back in terms of labor. It is a bit unsettling when you realize that affection might have started as a flex, isn't it? We see this documented in the historical records of the time. The pet-keeping culture wasn't just about love. It was about the luxury of having a companion. But here is where it gets dark. As this culture rose, the intrinsic value of the dog changed. They were no longer measured by their output, but by their aesthetic and their ability to be a companion animal. This was the dawn of the dog as a hobby, and just like any hobby, it can get obsessive fast. You might think you own your pet, but history suggests that this culture owns you. And what happened next? Well, let's just say it completely rewrote the genetic map of the species. Transitioning from workers to companions. Now, let's dig into the mechanics of this shift. We are talking about the transition from working dogs to companion animals. This wasn't a subtle drift, it was a hard pivot. Imagine you are a dog in the early 19th century. Your genetic code screams work, but suddenly your human doesn't want you to herd sheep. They want you to sit on a velvet cushion. Ugh, it must have been confusing. This transition marked the moment where utility died and personality took over. Here is a statistic that might blow your mind, metaphorically speaking, of course, as exact numbers from the 1800s are tricky. But the sheer volume of breeds that lost their original purpose during this time is staggering. We moved strictly from working dogs to companion animals. The fierce hunter became the lap warmer. The guardian became the greeter. But let's be real for a second. Is your dog actually happy doing nothing? Or is it bored out of its mind? This transition created a new class of animals, the unemployed. We essentially took their jobs away and replaced them with treats and belly rubs. Critics might say we softened the species. And they wouldn't be wrong. The focus shifted entirely. We stopped breeding for stamina and intelligence related to tasks and started breeding for temperament and looks suitable for a companion. This is the part they didn't tell you in history class. We didn't just change their jobs, we changed their very nature. And if you think that's wild, wait until you hear about the explosion that followed. It wasn't just a change in employment, it was a genetic fireworks show, the Victorian Dog Explosion phenomenon. This is it, the main event, the Victorian Explosion. If you remember nothing else, remember this term. This is the moment everything changed. When we say explosion, we aren't being dramatic. We are talking about a rapid, unprecedented expansion in the types and numbers of dogs. It was a biological boom. Before this, dog types were loose, functional categories. After this, we had brands. The Victorian Explosion refers specifically to this burst of diversity and categorization. It was like the tech boom of the 90s, but with puppies. Everyone wanted the newest, most specific model. The Victorian era didn't just like dogs, they were obsessed with them. But ask yourself, was this good for the dogs? Or was it just human vanity run wild? We started manipulating nature at a speed never seen before. This phenomenon created the modern breeds we recognize today. It's scary when you think about it. We played God with genetics because we could. The Victorian Explosion wasn't natural selection. It was human selection on steroids. And the results are sitting in your living room right now. But why did it happen then? Why not 1,000 years earlier? The answer lies in the society itself. Social context of dog history. To understand the dog, you have to understand the human holding the leash. The social context of dog history during the Victorian era is the key to this whole puzzle. The Victorians were obsessed with classification, order, and control, and they applied this obsession to their dogs. This social context drove the explosion. It was a time of industrialization, where nature was something to be conquered and organized. Here is a hard pill to swallow. Your dog's breed is likely a product of Victorian class anxiety. Owning a specific type of dog, a dog that resulted from this Victorian explosion, was a status symbol. It showed you were part of the modern world. Historical analysis confirms that the historical and social background was the fuel for this fire. You couldn't just have a mutt anymore. You needed a dog that fit into the pet-keeping culture of the elite. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Do we love them for who they are, or for what they say about us? This social pressure is what accelerated the creation of breeds. But what happens when you prioritize society over biology? You get some very strange results. The birth of modern breeds. Look at a pug. Look at a dachshund. These creatures are the direct result of the birth of modern breeds during the Victorian era. Before this time, a dog was defined by what it did. A terrier hunted vermin. A shepherd herded sheep. But the Victorian explosion changed the definition to what a dog looked like. This was the birth of modern breeds. This is the part that might make you angry. We started breeding for extremes. Flat faces, long bodies, curly coats. We treated biological traits like fashion trends. And because of the Victorian explosion, these traits became codified. We essentially locked these animals into rigid genetic boxes. The modern breeds are Victorian inventions. It's a legacy that we are still living with and paying the vet bills for today. We treated health for aesthetics because the pet-keeping culture demanded it. But the biggest change wasn't just physical, it was conceptual. How Victorians redefined the dog. So here we are at the end of the line, the final legacy. The Victorians didn't just change dogs, they redefined them. Think about the phrase, man's best friend. That sentiment was solidified during this era. The shift from working dogs to companion animals was complete. The dog was no longer a coworker, it was a soulmate. It's beautiful in a way, but it's also tragic. We stripped them of their autonomy and made them dependent on us for everything. The Victorian Explosion created a creature that exists solely for our emotional support. So next time you look at your dog, remember, you are looking at a Victorian invention. You are looking at the result of a pet-keeping culture that decided love was more important than labor. And honestly, looking at how spoiled my dog is, maybe the Victorians were onto something. But what happens next in the evolution of dogs? That is a story for another time. So you can thank the Victorians for your dog's lazy lifestyle. If you want to know what else history is hiding about your pet, tap that subscribe button right now. This is ChickaPaws, digging up the truth about your best friend.